Welcome to Season 4 of the Powered by Rock podcast. We'll bring you the best stories in rock music with a focus on highlighting independent rock musicians and their music from all over the world. No, rock music isn't dead. It's getting better and better. It's just time for you to start paying attention again. With that said, let's get this party started.
The mountain's gonna rise and fall by me.
Hello and welcome to the Powered by Rock podcast, where I'm going to be speaking with Andy Pohl, who plays guitar in the punk band Tsunami Bomb. You may have heard of them, but he also runs the indie record label Sell the Heart Records. Andy can shred a guitar as well as discover and support great bands, and he even used to do a podcast himself called Question the Answers Podcast. I've had a chance to listen to a few episodes of that. He's a man of many talents, and as far as the record label goes, he has helped put out releases from bands such as Neckscars, Decent Criminal, Bumsy and the Moochers, Goddamnit, with some of the new releases like Fat Heaven, Singing Lungs, and a brand new Operation IV cover song compilation that we'll talk about a little bit, featuring some very cool bands like Catbite, The Raging Nathans, and more. If you're looking for indie rock music, you'll be smart to start. Smart to start. I like that. I like the way that sounds. To put Sell the Heart Records at the top of that list or high on that list to check out. Hey, Andy, welcome to the show.
Hey, yeah, thanks so much, Isaac. It's a pleasure to be here. And yeah, smart to start. I like that.
Yeah. Smart to start with these guys. Smart to start with Sell the Heart. God, that's like so
hey, there you go.
Put that
there
on a
you
shirt.
go. Yeah. I like it. Yeah.
Oh man, I think we could write a song about that. Anyway, first thing I kind of want to talk about, because I've changed the format a little bit, and I really like to dig into kind of what I consider to be I think might be the most intriguing story to tell about, the guests that I have on. And you have a couple of intriguing stories, so I want to kind of capture them both. And the first one I want to talk about is you obviously didn't join Tsunami Bomb when it was originally formed back in, I want to say 2000-ish, 2002, somewhere in that area.
Like 1998, 99.
Yeah. Basically when I was in high school, and that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
And basically what happened was you kind of became friends with them over the years, and then they had a guitarist, Chris LaForge, who actually passed away suddenly. I don't know the details behind that or anything like that. But basically, can you kind of tell me how this whole process of you becoming the guitarist for Tsunami Bomb happened, and kind of maybe what's the story behind the longevity that you've known the band and everything, and what's been going on since you joined the band, I assume.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I've known members of the band Tsunami Bomb for like longer than even the band had been around. So Dominic, the bassist and one of the co-founders of the band, had been in a band prior to being in Tsunami Bomb called Headboard. And bands that I was in at the time played some shows with them. Back in the day, we played some shows with them in like the Central Valley in California, up in like the Sierra Nevada foothills. I can't remember if we played the Bay Area or not, but anyway, that's how I got introduced to Dom. And so he and I kind of became acquaintances at that point. Like we weren't like tight because we were living in different areas of California, but our bands, kind of coexisted in the same scene. And so we would, cross each other's paths quite often. Then he left Headboard and started Tsunami Bomb with Oubliette, and, Gabe was not officially their first drummer. Well, I guess technically officially he was their first drummer, but he wasn't like the official first drummer. It's another story, but
go look it up on the Wikipedia page.
but I was actually at their first show ever, which was at the Fatty Mocha, which is a club that no longer exists. That was in
Sounds
Merced.
Like a really unhealthy coffee shop.
It was run by this really great guy named Darren, who anyone who played there has, I'm sure, a story about Darren. He was a really, really interesting fellow. I'll say that. But it was a cool spot. It was in like, Merced, California, which is like this little podunk town, which has since then grown a lot. There's like a UC there, or a Cal State. I think it's a UC Merced now, but anyway. Gotcha. So I was at their first show ever. And, similar kind of situation where like bands that I was in, just would cross paths with them. And when I graduated from college, I moved up to Sonoma County, and I joined a band which ended up actually doing a lot of shows with Tsunami Bomb back in the day. So this was like, 2000, 2001. And then like that band had actually done a full tour with Tsunami Bomb. They did like a trip from California down over to Florida and back. This was prior to me being in the band, but basically, long story short, there's a deep history, like a connection with Tsunami Bomb from literally the beginnings of the band.
Yeah.
And so over the years, I've just stayed in touch with the band, and I've seen them in all the iterations that they had, all the different lineups, and got to become friends with virtually everyone that was in the band over the course of time. And
there's been a few members in the band for sure.
Yeah. I mean, there's been a lot of guitarists. I'm the latest guitar player, but like interestingly enough, I'm actually now, I think, officially the one with the longest tenure. So I don't have as much output as, like, say, Mike. Like I think he has more songs that are like written and recorded, but I think as far as time goes, I'm now the longest lasting guitar player that the band's had.
Fingers crossed it doesn't go away anytime soon.
Yeah, right. Yeah, fingers crossed. But yeah, like fast forward, the band decided to kind of regroup and do what was supposed to be like a one-off thing for the release of the Trust No One, which is a collection of it's songs from 7 inches they put out, as well as the Invasion from Within EP. And initially it was supposed to be like this one-off gig, and then I happened to be living with Dominic at the time, so we were roommates, or housemates, I should say, in Oakland, California. And he told me all about it. I was like, dude, this is awesome. This is great. It's cool. Very excited for them. They had Brian back in, and they had Oubliette. They had gotten Kate in. Super, super fun idea, and I was super stoked for them. And then fast forward, they ended up getting Chris in the band because Brian left. They got Chris brought in, and then so Chris actually didn't pass away until I had actually been asked to kind of take over, because basically there was it was like a matter of like logistics, because like he was living in Texas, and like it was just becoming like a little bit harder, to maintain having this basically a hired gun, who lived in so many states away. And so they eventually asked if I would be interested in joining. And then unfortunately, as you mentioned, Chris did pass away shortly after that, and it is super tragic what happened, but may he rest in peace. But and then so since then I've been in the band, and I was officially brought on about a year after, because essentially they had brought me on as like a hired gun, so I was like doing it show by show. But eventually they were like, here, and they actually gave me like I can't find it right now, but they gave me like a golden ticket. It was really cool. Nice. They gave me like a little golden ticket as a Christmas present. It was cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, and obviously, that you guys have kept active. I think I can't remember if it's only 1 or 2 albums since you've been part of the band, but I mean, there's albums and EPs from memory that you've put together with the band, correct?
Yeah. So, so the Trust No One LP is what kind of relaunched the band, which is that collection of previously released materials. But then, the band decided, let's record a new record. So. We had some songs that they had kind of demoed prior to me coming in, but then as soon as I got in, we just started demoing a bunch of songs. Yeah. So that's what ultimately led towards the Spine That Binds. And we also have put out a couple of 7 inches since then. We've put out the Still Standing 7-inch, which is we took El Diablo and Irish Boys and re-recorded them. And part of the reason for that was because those were 2 songs in particular that featured Oubliette that in previous iterations. Like the old Irish Boys was, it's a really cool recording, but it's like very kind of lo-fi, very, very punk rock sounding. And we kind of wanted to like update it a little bit. And then El Diablo on the record didn't really feature the keys. And so they wanted to incorporate that, because that was one of the songs that actually originally had heavily incorporated the keys as like a main focal point. And like, man, it sounds, I mean, the original recording sounds great, and this just sounds, in my opinion, even better, because like those keys like make it, a big deal. And then we also did a 7-inch that included covers of Out of Touch and Dead Man's Party. And then, yeah, we have some other things coming down the pipeline. We've been on a couple of compilations as well. Yeah.
Nice. Very cool. So yeah, obviously staying active. I know like I messaged you the other day and you're like, oh, sorry, I was just gigging out of town, like with Tsunami Bomb. I was like, oh yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, we actually just got done doing a run of 4 shows, which were in California. We did 3 shows in Southern California and then kind of a hometown show at Bottom of the Hill in San Francisco, and they were great. Like,
Yeah.
the weather unfortunately was a little rough, especially in Southern California. So I think that may have deterred some people from coming out. But
Yeah.
like people that were there, just
rain and snow in Southern California. What the hell's going on in this world?
yeah, it was wild. Like driving up the 101, we saw all the snow caps, and yeah, but the people that were at the shows just absolutely brought it, and so much good energy, and like it was so much fun. And we got to do those with Death by Stereo, who are kind of, you know, slowly but surely becoming like our like brother band. You know, like it's pretty great. Like those guys are great.
Yeah, they're an awesome band. Yeah, for sure. So obviously before you got into Tsunami Bomb, you had started Sell the Heart Records, I think, releasing the first album maybe around 2010 or 2011 from memory. Is that right?
Yeah, I want to say it was 2010. Yeah. Yeah. And so, I mean, the first official release on Sell the Heart was actually my own band. It was a band called Snipers. You know, I'd been in that band for a few years, and we had recorded this record, and we were, you know, really stoked on it. And back then, you know, vinyl hadn't really blown up again. So like people were still releasing vinyl, but you know, CDs were still kind of the main thing. This was kind of just before when streaming had really taken off. So CDs were still very much like the main format, you know, I think for most people.
Or illegally downloading shit, right?
Well, right. Yeah. No, like Napster and like LimeWire and those things were definitely a thing, but like this was right around the time when like you could break on MySpace, you know? So streaming existed and streaming was there, but as far as merch goes and formats for selling most of your stuff, it was still CDs. And so Snipers CD was the first one, but then the next release was a local artist named Good Riddler, and so that was our first official LP that we did. And it was only a 4-song EP, but we did it as like this, you know, super nice, like 180 gram vinyl, like two-sided 45-inch, and you know, very quickly got an education on what it was like to release a vinyl record and like all that entails. And I mean, it was actually a pretty smooth process. We worked with Pirates Press, and like they made it super easy. And you know, the rep who I worked with is actually a guy that I knew from beforehand, and he helped out so much. And like I learned so much along the way. And since then we're almost we're just over the 50 release mark. So our catalog's 50 deep. Yep.
Let's see which way to go here. I think you were part of this one too.
The repressing. So not the original release, that was Wiretap, but we were able to take place in doing the repressing of, and that's dude, Decent Criminal are amazing. Like they're fantastic. And like that record is so good. Anyone that doesn't have it yet needs to buy it immediately. It's very good.
For anyone who is only listening to this, I'm pointing to the Decent Criminal Bleached album, which I also have the Decent Criminal Bloom album right above my head. They have a new album coming out, and I've heard a couple songs out there, and that shit is amazing. So they are absolutely one of my favorite bands, and the fact that you put out one of their albums even as a repressing, pretty amazing.
Yeah, well, and we did end up putting out the DC EP 7-inch.
Yep, that's right.
Which was us and Gunner Records, and I mean that's a killer 7-inch too. So everything they're doing is great, and I have a very good feeling that they're going to be moving on to like some really cool things over the years if they keep it up.
Yeah, and they seem to know every single band in America somehow.
I mean, they've put in the work. They're out there. They're playing all the shows. They're doing everything right. I mean, my hat's off to them. They're absolutely got a great work ethic, and they're just a really good band.
Yeah, and you'd mentioned obviously the fact that this was originally put out by Wiretap Records, but you have a pretty good relationship with a lot of other record labels out there, like Wiretap, I believe Engineer, a few other ones out there. So kind of just Explain to me how that works when you're collaborating with other record labels. Either obviously you're doing the US release, or you're doing like a partial vinyl color or something like that. How does that all go about when you guys sit down and talk about that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I like to think that I do. You know, Rob has been super, super, you know, generous with his time, and like, you know, when I actually, you know, because I took a break from the label, like, you know, the label didn't like officially stop or anything, but I just kind of like took a break from it. When I started coming back a few years ago, you know, he was somebody that I actually reached out to and was asking him. It's like, hey man, so like I'd love your advice on a few things, because I'm kind of trying to get back into this game, and like I'd love to know, like, you've been doing this now steadily for a number of years, like
Yeah.
what's been working for you, like what hasn't been working for you. And he was so generous with his time, and like, you know, offering me a lot of advice and stuff. And we've collaborated on a few things. David at Engineer has also been a really, really great you know, partner. We've done like well over 10 releases, I think, at this point.
Nice.
And you know, those conversations are usually just very casual, you know, when it comes down to it, because you know, I think with anyone running a label out of your, you know, house or your apartment,
Yeah.
like we do, first and foremost, you just have to like the music a lot. And like, I would even go to say, like, you have to love it, you know? So
Yeah.
as long as you love the music, I think everything else just kind of becomes like, okay, like whatever we got to do, you know, to put it out, because this is good. And like, I want to be a part of this. So, you know, typically it'll be like, I will maybe present like to one of these guys, like, hey, I've got this band and I really want to release it. I'd love for you guys to be a part of it. And really, I just love to know what your level of interest is, if you're interested. So for example, David, you know, if I present to him a band who's a US based band who may or may not have the ability to go tour in the UK
Yeah.
at all, you know, I'm not going to expect that he's necessarily going to go like full in
Yeah.
on like a 50-50 split. Like, you know, if he's interested in carrying like 25 copies or like 50 copies of something, like, then that's more than generous, and as far as I'm concerned, because, you know, let's face it, like, unless you're in front of people, like, yeah, I mean, even with the internet, like, you know, you can YouTube and you can stream and like all these things, like you can get all that material without having to have somebody in front of you. But I think more often than not, when bands are actually able to present themselves in front of people in a live setting, like that tends to move more units.
Yeah.
But David's been super good about just being like, oh no, this is great, I love this, and like I think that I have an audience for this, you know.
Yeah.
So if he can bring in like a 10 to 15% stake in it, then that's great. And then on top of that, if like, say, you know, Gunner Records in Germany or Bearded Punk in Belgium, you know, if one of them wants to take on an additional 10% or 15%, then that distributes it even wider. And then Kazu, who lives in Japan and runs Waterslide Records, if he wants to take on another 20 copies, you know, out of a 300 run press, I mean, now, you know, you've got almost half, if not a third, like a third to a half of those records now spoken for all around the world, where people don't, they no longer have to worry about paying like crazy international shipping, right?
Yeah.
And it benefits
$75 for one vinyl is not necessarily.
It's bonkers, like how much people, like, it happens all the time. People will pay more for the shipping than they will for the actual record.
Yeah.
And it's just such a bummer, because it's not cost effective for, like, you know, a local label in Australia to go ahead and take on the cost of pressing a run just for Australia if only 50 people in Australia are going to buy it, right?
For sure.
So, you know, if they can just pay the cost, you know, like the price per unit plus bulk shipping rate to get 50 copies sent over there, that's much easier for them, and it cuts down on like the space they have to, you know, save in their warehouse, like whatever. And you know, it works both ways. Like David at Engineer has presented bands to me where I'm like, yeah, like I can do something similar, where like you've got this band who's based in the UK, I can take on like 50 copies, and then I've probably got a good audience for those. And like I've done that with a few bands of theirs. So that I think is a really great way to do these partnerships, because it ends up benefiting, you know, both sides of the aisle, you know, so to speak.
Sure.
And ultimately, benefits the bands because you know like Neckscars I think is a great example of this, where you know they're still kind of a younger band, but now that they've gotten you know some attention both in the United States and the UK in particular because of the partnership with Engineer.
Yep.
Now they might actually have a good leg to stand on to actually go to the UK and say,
Yep.
no, like we have like representation there, like we have a label that represents us there, and like we could go there and like realistically do some shows and not just be like this random US band who just shows up, you know, like so yeah.
Yeah, and there's two things in that kind of the statements that you made there that I want people who are just listening to kind of take notice of. Number one, and I actually talked about this with Rob from Wiretap as well, is bands that tour and actually show up and play in front of people can move more units because people then have a bigger connection with that band, right? Like if you're just going to find, like the internet's a giant place. If you're going to find bands by like a Spotify, like shuffle or something like that, that's one thing. And you might think, oh, like this song's okay or whatever. But if you see it live and then you're like, holy shit, like this is really good, you're a lot more inclined to go then purchase something from them, vinyl, merch, whatever. And then you'll probably listen to them on streaming as well. So for bands, make sure that you're playing live music, because like just being on the internet and releasing music is definitely not going to help you create a sustainable income, in my opinion, unless you hit the lottery somehow. I mean, if you've got licensing for, you know, a commercial or a movie or something that blows you up, I don't know, or some virality, but that's essentially like winning the lottery. So just go play shows. Like they're a lot of fun. I mean, I don't know why you'd want to be a musician and not want to play a lot of shows, but that's part one of the statement that I think was pretty clear. The second thing there is, for anyone who's looking to get some insight on how you can actually start a label, you don't have to be the guy that carries 500 vinyl copies of an album to start a label, right? Like I remember talking to Rob about this and he was like, yeah, we did a bunch of color variations on the first one. And I was like, yeah, probably not the first thing that you want to do with your very first album release is like, let's do 300 copies of 3 different colors. And it's like 900 copies. You're like, we're going to be stuck with some of that for sure. So use the advice of other people around you. Reach out to record labels, Andy, Rob, Dave, like any of these guys who are running these record labels. They're usually pretty good with their time and they're pretty helpful, and they'll tell you the land or the what do you call the pitfall mistakes that they've made. And so work with people who know what they're doing. You can take on a minor stake in potentially a release or something like that. So I think those two things are really valuable for a lot of people who might either think like, hey, I want to start a band, or hey, I want to grow my band, or I want to start a label or grow a label for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, I've said this on a few other podcasts that I've done interviews, but when I was starting,
this isn't your first podcast, Andy. What the hell? No, I'm just kidding.
I know. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm not a podcast virgin, unfortunately. No, like when I was starting out with Sell the Heart Records, it was initially it was me and like a group of other people, and then eventually it kind of like whittled down to like just kind of being the thing that I took the ball and ran with. But I actually reached out to, I don't know if you're familiar with the band The Velveteen or The New Trust. Are you familiar with those bands?
I don't think so, actually.
Okay. Well, anyway, Josh Staples is the bass player for both of those bands, and you know he lived up in the Sonoma County area, and you know I was friends with him, and still am friends with him. But he had run a record label for many years with, I think it was him and his wife, and I asked him, I was like, hey, do you have any advice? You know, he's like, just don't, dude, don't do it. and you know, he was like half kidding, but he was half serious too. He was just like, you know, it's a big time suck. It's a big money suck. And you have to, it's basically like an investment or like gambling. You have to be willing to lose what you put in. So as long as you go into it understanding that you may not make any of your money back, then that's probably the number one piece of advice that I would give anyone trying to do this. But the same thing really applies to a band too, because
or a business of any kind. Yeah.
Well, really any business. Yeah. Because, you know, you're probably not going to make any real money doing this. You know, the likelihood is very slim.
Yeah.
So I've always, like, my mantra the entire time has always been, as long as I break even, that's it. That's all I care about.
Yeah.
Everything else is a happy accident as far as I'm concerned, you know? So, you know, thankfully the label seems to have gotten bigger and it's gotten more attention, like more positive attention.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that there's any negative attention that I know of, but I mean, whatever. But yeah, I mean, it is slowly but surely growing, and you know, if I had the opportunity to turn this into my full-time job, I don't think I would, to be perfectly honest with you. Like, I don't think that I would make this my job, because I wouldn't want to get burnt out on it, because I like doing it. If I feel like if it was my job though, that I would probably get more burnt out on it more easily, and then I just hate it. And so I'm fully content doing this as something that consumes a decent amount of my free time. I care about it. I care about the bands. I care about the music itself, and you know, it's just something that I feel allows me to partake in the greater, you know, universe of the music scene in my own way, you know, while still being able to maintain playing music in, like, say, Tsunami Bomb or another project.
Yeah, and that's awesome here, because you know, I was going to say that, speaking of like the negativity, I had read a quote from another label. No, I'm just kidding. Saying like, "What a son of a bitch that Andy guy is." No, I was like, it's always been positive.
I bet you it was Dom. I bet you it was Dominic Davi, you know, from Alternative Tentacles. Yeah, that bastard. No. Yeah.
But I was going to say, you know, obviously there are a lot of labels out there, and you know, back when I was young, it was like you could easily find a niche label for pretty much any niche that you wanted. So it was like Drive Through Records or Kung Fu. There was obviously Fat Records and all these other ones, right? Like if you wanted a specific kind of genre or subgenre of like pop punk or emo or something, like you had to these labels, and they would kind of specialize in it. Now I think it's a little different these days, because first of all, punk, like just rock music in general, kind of went kind of underground for a long time, unless you're like a Foo Fighters or, you know, some mainstream big band already. So I think labels kind of diversified a little bit more. So if you could kind of explain the musical genres or the taste that you have for Sell the Heart Records versus some of the, you know, the record labels I've already mentioned, or maybe some of the mainstream record labels, like what would you say about Sell the Heart Records for people who kind of know off the top of their head, so they can go check it out?
Sure. Yeah, Sell the Heart never really set out to have a specific genre in mind. I've always kind of felt like it's a reflection of my own musical taste, and it doesn't even incorporate all of it either. I mean, like I'm a big jazz fan, you know.
Yeah, I was gonna say I haven't heard any jazz or funk releases from you yet, but
no, yeah. But I mean, I love funk. I love funk. I love hip hop. You know, and it's not that I'm opposed to releasing those styles of music. I just don't know if I have the right audience for those, you know, necessarily, you know, I mean, but if I found like a hip hop artist that I loved, like, I mean, I've talked to a few of them and it just didn't really work out, but if one came along and it made sense to release it, like I would totally do that, you know. Same with jazz, same with funk, you know, but you know, I think realistically though, like you kind of have to, you know, maintain at least a bit of a wheelhouse, you know. Because then it just makes it so much easier to like funnel your marketing, and
absolutely,
you know,
your marketing becomes much easier. It spends less money that way.
Yeah, I mean, I've had this conversation before where I feel like I kind of passively shot myself in the foot, like by not trying to pinpoint like maybe one genre or maybe even two to specialize in. But you know, Sell the Heart really does incorporate a multi-genre aspect. Like, you know, we have punk, we have indie rock, we have like post-hardcore, we have like, you know, dark wave, like kind of goth, we have some post rock, like instrumental stuff, we have like post metal, like the band Roland, you know, so
even a bit of ska,
I don't know,
sometimes.
Yeah, ska punk bands. Obviously we've done like the Rancid and the Op Ivy tributes, you know, some emo, you know, stuff, and so it's kind of all over the place. I kind of wouldn't have it any other way, even though, like I said, to my own detriment, I feel like it would be so much easier if I stayed with like just one genre. But I don't know. Like, to me, that's no fun, you know. Like
and I'll tell you that the label gets burnt out pretty quickly when you have a bunch of bands that sound the same.
Well, yeah, like that's kind of my where my head goes with it. I'm just like, okay, like I'm not gonna mention any labels, but like there are some out there where I'm like, dude, literally every band that you have sounds exactly the same.
Yeah.
And I'm just,
how many goddamn skate punk bands can I listen to?
well, you know what I mean? It's like, and it's, I love a good, System Restore, skate punk band.
Yeah.
They're great. I love them. Totally stoked to release their record, but if I had all just bands that sounded like that, I don't know. Like, I feel like that's kind of silly, in some ways.
Yeah.
But again, like, it's no shade to any record labels. Like, do your own thing, and more power to you. But
yeah,
I would feel, I think, a little uncomfortable with limiting myself, I think, to one sound only. But maybe to their benefit, like like that whole thing we were talking about just before. It's like, they know their audience, like skate punk audience. Here you go. Here's 10 records that all have the skate punk sound.
You'll get an excellent skate punk record every month of the year.
Well, right, and I think that on one hand it's brilliant, on the other hand it's silly. So that's just my opinion.
Yeah. I agree. There's so much more I want to talk to you, obviously, about. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I'm going to bring Andy from Sell the Heart Records into the spotlight with some hot seat questions. I think you're going to really enjoy this, and just stick around, because the Powered by Rock podcast returns right after this.
Reverend Guitars embodies the idea that every run of scorching lead and every roll of finger-picked twang deserve the same passion and commitment to quality. Whether you're selling out arenas or playing in your living room, we know that what makes an instrument powerful is when players wield them to create something remarkable. A melody that moves mountains, a riff that just won't quit. We want to be there in your hands when that happens. For us, that means staying true to what we believe. Somewhere along the road of electric guitar history, it became a crazy idea that guitar makers should craft guitars with the same sense of purpose and passion, whether they're played in a bedroom or an arena. If that's a wild idea, then we're in the right place, carrying 6 strings and an attitude, and we're in good company. Reverend Guitars. Well played.
Welcome back to the Powered by Rock podcast. I'm here with Andy Pohl from Sell the Heart Records and the guitarist from Tsunami Bomb to bring him into the spotlight for a few questions, and hopefully he doesn't get too hot underneath this bright light, pressure situation. Hey, Andy, are you ready to be put in the spotlight?
Well, I'm ready, buddy.
All right. First one, I'm just gonna go ahead and shoot you right in the back and get you here. As a record label owner, I'm gonna put you on a real hot seat here and ask you, what's your favorite release that you've put out on Sell the Heart Records?
Oh God.
And knowing that, I'm just going to tell every other band that they're not as good, right? So I'm going to be like,
yeah, right. No, I hate this question. Let's see. Oh boy, that's a hard one.
I'm gonna have to do a lot of editing just to get all these ums and all this dead space out of here, Andy. Come on now.
No,
it's
right.
hot seat question.
All right. No, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I think that my favorite release that I've done is the States of Nature record.
Okay.
I think that record is just so good, and the band needs more eyes on it than they currently have. Like, and I'm biased because it kind of checks off a lot of boxes for me, like as far as like my musical taste goes.
Sure.
Like, it's a little bit more like that kind of post-hardcore, like post-punk, garagey, like it's kind of like a mix between like Fugazi and Pretty Girls Make Graves, and like Q and Not You, and like Queens of the Stone Age. Like it's just a super dynamic and fun record, super well produced, sounds great, the artwork's great. I love that record, and I really wish more people had heard it. They're unfortunately a band that doesn't really get a chance to play out all that much. Like, they did Fest last year, and like they got a really, really great reaction, which is awesome. And when they do play, like, people love them, but they're not really in a spot to like do a lot of touring. So,
sure.
Try as we made, like, we did PR for them and everything like that, and we got them in some publications and stuff. But it's just going to take some time, I think, for people to like really gravitate towards them. But they are an excellent band, and I just love that record.
Cool. I haven't actually heard of it. You said States of Nature is the name?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Cool.
It's called Songs to Sway.
Songs to Sway. I'm gonna have to check it out. That's why I always ask these questions, because I'm like, first of all, I want to make you like cringe, but also I want a good recommendation and no bullshit, right? I don't be like, oh, every album we put out's the great.
Oh yeah, it's all good. No, No. I mean, I do love every record that I've put out. Like I'll stand behind every single one of them, like
Of course.
wholeheartedly. But yeah, I think if I had to classify just the one, like I think that's the one that I would say overall is like my favorite release that we've put out. Yeah.
Awesome.
And I didn't want to say my own band, even though like I thought I kind of like my own band, but
that's the back door out, right? Like you're like, oh
Right.
well, you know what? I'm just gonna say my own band, so that
I know,
way
right?
nobody's
Yeah.
feelings are hurt.
that'd have been too easy. Yeah.
But I'm also an egomaniac, so that's of course the
Well, yeah,
actual
of
answer.
course,
All right, question number 2. What 3 bands that you have either toured or played with or would like to that you think more people should know about? Obviously, we talked about States of Nature right now, but give me at least either 3 different ones or 2 more that you would like to throw into that list.
I think everyone needs to start paying attention to the band Fat Heaven. We recently released their new album.
Yeah,
and
still
it's
working
really,
on the review for that, but it is literally on my to-do list right here. So
nice. Yeah, they are a great pop punk band, and total perfect like trio pop punk, great songs, super catchy, great production. This record is a total ripper, and they are fun live. Like Tsunami Bomb's played a few shows with them. I think that they could blow up, if given the right attention. So everyone needs to know about them. Let's see.
And
who else.
that album's called Life is Trash, right? That's the name of it.
It's called Trash Life.
Trash Life. I knew it was something
Trash
like
Life.
that.
Yeah. And then who else? I'll stick with on the label like Middle-Aged Queers. They are so fun, and they are such like a great breath of fresh air in terms of like totally not pretentious, just super fun, catchy. Obviously, they bring out, and illuminate like the queer community, which is, always a good thing. And I've just, I've gotten to become really good friends with them over the years, and I just think they're one of the coolest bands out there right now doing it. Oh, and I'm gonna add one more. There's a band from the East Bay called the Hammer Bombs, and I honestly think that they are like the best band in the East Bay right now, like the best pop punk band in like the Bay Area right now, and everyone needs to be listening to them. They are so good. They're so fun. Hammer Bombs, yeah, and like they write super clever songs, very catchy. I mean, if they had released this music in like the early 90s, they would have been right up there with like, Green Day or the Queers or like Screeching Weasel or any of those bands, like easily. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. And I'm just like making a note to myself because I've definitely checked out Fat Heaven. I've definitely checked out Middle-Aged Queers. I have not checked out Hammer Bomb yet. So I'm making a little note to myself right now, checking them out.
Yeah.
Because I will take your word for it. I think just through your label, I've discovered a few bands. The Atlantic Union Project, actually, I thought was really, really fucking good. I was like,
it's good, isn't it? Yeah.
Guys? Yeah. It's like,
yeah.
But yeah,
it's that album's a little unexpected. Like that's an album that I feel like I'll give you my honest opinion. Like when I first heard it, when David first told me about it, like I was like, this is really good, but I don't know if a lot of people are going to really get it.
Yeah.
Because it is like very, very, very produced. It's like super high production value. And that's there's nothing wrong with that. But it's just like, to me, it kind of sounded like a radio rock record,
Yeah.
Like a Foo Fighters record almost, like super, super high quality production. And I think that can kind of rub people the wrong way sometimes when they think of like post-hardcore or whatever, But to me, I'm like, no, this is really good. Like, I think if the right people hear it, they'll really dig it. But they're, one of those bands too that like, they don't like play shows because they're like one person lives in the UK, the other people live in the United States. So how would they possibly do that all the time?
Yeah.
So yeah, but that's a good record. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, there's so many bands in California. I don't even know where. I guess I don't know where the Atlantic Union Project is from. I know Fat Heaven, I think, is from New Jersey, but just in like the Bay Area, there's probably, I don't know, 10,000 freaking bands. Like that's how it is in Southern California. It's like there's no shortages of bands. So when you actually hear something that you like, and then you can remember them off the top of your head, it's like I've probably listened to 5,000 bands in 10 years, and the fact that I can think of like 3, that shows how good they actually are.
Well, yeah. I think it's a testament to like how impactful their songs are when it sticks with you. Fat Heaven's from New York, by the way.
Okay, that's close.
Atlantic Union Project, they have members who live in the East Coast, and then members who live in the UK. Yeah.
Gotcha. I knew the Atlantic Union was some part of like jumping the ocean, but I didn't know exactly how.
Yeah, it's like four people live in the UK, and then Craig lives in New Jersey. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yep.
All right. Now, speaking of California, you are from the Bay Area. And to people who don't know what the Bay Area is, anybody who's from quote unquote the Bay Area will always just call it the Bay or the Bay Area. Like everybody in the fucking world knows that it's San Francisco and Oakland or something, but that's what it is. It's San Francisco, Oakland. Sometimes San Jose kind of gets lumped in there just because it's kind of sort of close to it. But, and you might repeat an answer here because you've already mentioned one, but what's the best album that you are aware of that has been put out by a band or artist from the Bay Area?
Just ever, or
and don't
just
say
recently?
fucking Dookie either. All right.
Are you saying ever, or okay,
Of
ever?
all time.
Oh wow. Oh Lord. Okay.
I'm sure that you've lived there long enough. You're like, I know a lot of these bands, so there's got to be at least one album.
There's a million. I don't know. Primus, Sailing the Seas of Cheese.
Wow. All right.
I love that record. Yeah, I love Primus. I'm a very unapologetic Primus fan. I love them. That record kind of changed my life. Like, you know, I just have always been a huge fan of theirs. And like when I heard that for the first time, I was like, this is cool. This is weird. Yeah, I dig this. Yeah.
Yeah. Primus is one of my favorite bands of all time. And I will say that probably for most of my life, Sailing the Seas of Cheese was my favorite album. But up until about 5 years ago, I really got back into Frizzle Fry. I love every song on the album. I'm like, that's such a good album.
I don't know. Right off the top of my head, like a couple of other notable ones would be like Dead Kennedys, Fresh Fruit, Rotten Vegetables, Metallica, Master of Puppets. You know, because they're technically from the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Faith No More, like you know, you pick one. You know.
Yeah.
You know, Tower of Power. You know, back to Oakland. You know, like tons of good records from the Bay
obviously
Area.
Rancid is from the East Bay.
Yeah, like area, you know.
So,
yeah, and Out Come the Wolves. I mean, obviously Dookie. You know. There's too many. There's too many.
Yep. So if you're wondering who's from San Francisco, there's a few trivia facts for you right there.
Yeah, I mean, Third Eye Blind, Smash Mouth.
Yeah, there you go. Third Eye Blind has some good stuff. Although they're really only known for the music that came out in the 90s. They're still out there and they still make music and they're still good.
Totally.
Yep. All right. Totally unrelated to music. Another Bay Area question. Why has sourdough toast and sourdough bread, you know, a San Francisco specialty, become so popular? And why is it also the worst bread after focaccia?
Wait, so you're saying focaccia is the worst?
Yes. And then sourdough.
I disagree. I think focaccia is great. I don't know, dude. I'm not a huge sourdough fan. I mean, I think the best utilization of it is to make toast with, or to do like a panini with. But just eating sourdough regularly, like either sliced or like, I mean, if you tear off a piece of like a baguette, like a sourdough baguette, and use it for dipping, like that's one thing. But I don't know. I'm not really partial to breads that have crust that's like very chewy and hard.
Yeah.
So like that. So I'm not really a huge fan. But the question was why it's become so popular.
Yes. Why is it so popular? Why is everybody learning how to make sourdough toast or sourdough bread now?
I don't know. It's
I'm gonna blame you personally for it.
Well, I mean, it is my fault. I mean, you know, I had a blog about it and it blew up. But no, maybe it's just because it's something that I don't know could pass the time during COVID. You know.
Yeah. What else are you gonna do? I guess, right?
I guess, yeah. I mean,
put some clam chowder in a sourdough bowl and eat it out. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, I do love a bread bowl. You know. Sourdough in a bread bowl or clam chowder in a bread bowl is pretty damn good. I don't know. Maybe it's just because there's so many different ways you can make sourdough bread, or like the different like added ingredients you can use for it or something like that. You know, or maybe it's kind of like one of those things where, you know, it's a progressive thing where the first few times you try it and it doesn't really work, but then you just learn to perfect it until finally like you have like the perfect way of doing it so that every single time it's perfect, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I always have this challenge in my head. So every time I go to a restaurant, almost every single human being that, like, especially if you go sit down for breakfast or whatever, and it comes with toast, every person other than me at a table will say, "Oh, I'll take sourdough toast." And I'm like, "Will you really? Will you really?" I guarantee you will not eat all your toast. And they never do. Never do.
Yeah.
I'm like,
My
so why'd you
go-to
get
is,
it? Like, you eat one piece.
My go-to is English muffin usually, and otherwise I'll do like rye or whole wheat.
Yeah, I'll also, anytime I get a sandwich with sourdough, I'm like, man, this could have been better with any other bread, but whatever.
Yeah.
But I like to have little weird questions thrown in there just because I figured, you know, that's the, it could have been about rice-a-roni for all you knew. There's going to be something.
It is the San Francisco treat. Yeah.
All right. So the question.
Fun fact: if you live in San Francisco, you are required to eat at least one box a week. That's true. You can look it up.
They put it on your like government subsidy. Like if you get one of these, you can get a tax break for X amount of dollars at the end of the year.
You're eating the treat. Damn it! You're gonna eat.
All right. Question number 5: if you could sign one band to your record label with money and financial complications aside, just say this is the band I want to sign, and they're willing to do it. What band would you sign right now to be the flagship band of Sell the Heart Records?
So any band ever. Yep. Oh God.
Ideally, they'd still be putting out active music, not like you'd repress something. But
I mean, honestly, probably Decent Criminal.
Very cool.
Yeah, because they just announced their new record and they decided to do it their own.
Yep.
So yeah.
I told Tristan, and I told him in person, I was like, if I were to start a record label, like you guys and like maybe Radkey from Missouri would be like the two bands that I would choose like, off the bat. Like these would be the two best bands for me to start with. But I'm not going to start a record label because I just don't have the time for it. But it would be rad to have them. Yeah,
Radkey's dope, and I don't know, like it's funny when you mention like this idea of like having like a flagship band, and like I almost feel like if you're in a band and if you have the ability to handle all of the like logistics of releasing your own record yourself, and you can realistically move like 300 copies, you don't need a label.
Yep.
You know, that's like labels are nice and they're fun, but and it's not that I would necessarily say that you shouldn't, reach out to labels, because like there are labels out there that can do much more for the bands than I can, but like Decent Criminal, they don't need Sell the Heart, and like I don't necessarily need Decent Criminal, but I like Decent Criminal a lot.
Yeah.
And like I liked working with them, and like I would have absolutely gladly released this new record of theirs, but they decided to go their own way, and like I'm all for it. I think that they can totally pull it off, and they will, and it's great, so yeah. But I would have been stoked to have had them remain on the active roster in terms of new releases.
Yeah, they're on a trajectory, although when I say it's like a quick trajectory, it's really not a quick. I mean, they've been around for a while, right? But like,
yeah,
10
years easily. Yeah,
they know what they're doing, and they have that trajectory of, we just want sustainable growth every year, and each time we want to do something that benefits us, like, right? So like they want to make it a career, so that's pretty huge for them. And I think putting out on their own now record label called Dist with 2 I's from memory,
yep.
DIISSED, Dist
yep.
Records. Definitely go pre-order that if you haven't, and check it out. But yeah, they are absolutely one of the best bands, especially like under 35 or whatever. I think Tristan and I think they're both just around 30, 33, somewhere in there. But
yeah, they're in like their early 30s, I think.
Yeah. But that's it. I mean, that's all the spotlight questions I have for you. But I do want to obviously get your full permission, because I talked to you before this, because I want to play a track by Tsunami Bomb, obviously with you included. The song is called Naysayers, and I just want to make sure that I have the permission from the artists involved with the actual project to play this on air for streaming and whatever, so that way YouTube and Spotify and all these other places don't get all pissed off about it. But do I have your approval to play Naysayers by Tsunami Bomb?
Yes, you have my permission. That's fine.
Perfect. All right. So to play us into the break, here is the song Naysayers from Tsunami Bomb, and we'll be back right after this.
Don't listen to anybody talk you out of what you want to do.
Normal and standard, I I'll decree my own patience and not get wrapped up in your contradiction. To choose my adventures to get past the fiction. Monotony is draining and I'm through with waiting. I'm not asking permission. I don't need your forgiveness. You don't define the conditions. Judgment won't bring me down. Do you not see that it's an addiction to live your life only for admiration? I'll seize the moment. I'll live for me. I won't hesitate to live my own way. I won't wait for tomorrow. I'm gonna live for today. Don't rely on the future. Today's the good old days. I won't wait for tomorrow. I'm gonna live for today. Don't rely on the future. Today's the good old days. I won't wait for tomorrow. I'm gonna live for today. Don't rely on the future. Today's the good old days. I won't wait for tomorrow. I'm gonna live for today. Don't rely on the future. Today's the good old
Running your own music career is incredibly difficult. Trying to get people to like, share, comment, listen, follow, it's all just overwhelming. Most musicians give up before they ever achieve success, and that's the worst. If you're looking for a better way to grow your music career, head to DIYrockcareer.com for some absolutely free training. It costs you nothing, and it could be the difference between hitting your goals and quitting your dream. Go to DIYrockcareer.com today by clicking the link below this episode.
Then I lost my way.
All right, welcome back to the Powered by Rock podcast. Okay, Andy, let's talk about some of the cool shit you got coming up this year because you are busy. You always keep busy, which is nice. So can you talk about what's on the horizon for you, a label, and Tsunami Bomb in 2023?
Sure. So I'll start with the label. Yeah, this year has been already a super busy year for us. We already have, I think, a solid 8 releases under our belt in terms of like either stuff that's already come out or is in pre-order or has been announced. So we've got several more down the pike. We have our 2023 record club, which is 12 records for one price, includes free shipping. You get a 25% discount on any most other stuff that we sell. And then, it's really the best deal in town. You're going to be getting records from Goddamnit, Bumsy and the Moochers, the 84 Draft, Middle Aged Queers, Cross Keys, Raised on TV, Fat Heaven is in there. It's super. Oh, you're going to be getting the new Operation Ivy tribute record. It's a super stacked lineup of releases, and we have just over 20 spots left out of the 50 that are available. So if you want to sign up, I would do it because once those are gone, they're gone. And some of those records that you'll be getting are exclusive to the record club in terms of variants. So you'll be getting like specifically certain variants that are only available if you sign up. As far as some of those releases, yeah, we're co-releasing the new Crossed Keys record, which is a really rad band out of Philadelphia. It's kind of like a super group, members of Zoloft the Rock and Roll Destroyer, Kid Dynamite, and we're doing that with Creep Records. That comes out in April. We've got the new Operation Ivy tribute record, which I previously mentioned. It's a co-release with Lava Sox Records, 33 tracks. As far as we know, and what I've seen, it's every Operation Ivy record that was recorded and released being covered. And
Wow.
It's, features Catbite, We Are the Union, Raging Nathans, a side project that I'm involved in called Heater did a song. Original Sun contributed. The last recording that they ever did is on there. Neckscars is on there. Middle Aged Queers, Bumsy the Moochers. It is stacked. It is a stacked record. And part of the proceeds of that are actually going to be donated to Gilman, 924 Gilman Street. So You'll be doing kind of a good service there. Let's see. Raised on TV, who I know is a band that you've championed, and actually you're the one who introduced me to them, which is something
Just a
I
random
thank you
email
for.
one day. I said, Andy, I think you might like these guys. Check them out. And you're like, yeah, they're awesome. Like, I want to sign them. It's like,
Yeah,
fantastic.
they're great. Yeah, and that's been working out great. Unfortunately, the vinyl production is going a little slow on that, so it's the scheduling for that one's going to be a little awkward, but we've announced it, and we've been slowly releasing a couple of singles from it.
Yeah.
And so far it's been good response, and they're a really, really great band. I mean, like, they're kind of up there with Decent Criminal as far as I'm concerned. Like, they just write really, really good songs, you know. And thankfully they're road dogs. They'll go out and they'll tour a lot, and they always put on a good show, and they have a great attitude about it, and they've been really great to work with, and I expect that people are going to really like this album when it comes out. Let's see, we just released the Fat Heaven record. We just released a record by the band called Singing Lungs, which is another co-release with Count Your Lucky Stars Records out of the Midwest. We've got a couple of records that are from European bands that we haven't announced yet, so more information will be coming about those soon. And then there's a few other things that I won't give too many hints on that are coming out later this year that we'll be part of, that I think people will be very excited about. So it's a busy year as far as the label goes. As far as Tsunami Bomb goes, so we just did this tour of, not so much a tour, but it's like a run of shows in California. This coming weekend, which I don't know when this is being aired, but
I think it'll air
the weekend
after
of
this, but yeah.
Okay, yeah. So March 10th, 11th, and 12th, we're playing in Texas for 3 shows, where we get to be a ska band for a few days.
Nice.
There's an ongoing joke that Tsunami Bomb is a ska band, and I mean, we may or may not be, but depends on who you ask. But yeah, so we're excited about that because we haven't been in Texas in a long time, and we have some really good roots there. And let's see, then our main objective is to record and release a new record. So we have a bunch of demos, like, we're slowly tightening them up. It's been a process, but it's coming together, and they're some of the best songs we've written.
Nice.
To collect, like, as you know, it's easy for me to say that because, like, I'm the new guy in the band, and, like, I don't ever really want to compare it to the old stuff, because the old stuff's great. Like, I mean, I'm a fan, and I love playing those. And whether or not people who listen to these new songs think the same, I'm not gonna even attempt to convince them otherwise, because they like what they like. But I think that they're excellent songs, and, like, we've really put together a really good batch of tunes, and I think people are going to be really stoked on them. But
I just want to interject one thing real quick and just say that people who liked Van Halen and only think that the David Lee Roth era was the only good part of Van Halen, I think you're a bit high, because Sammy Hagar did write some pretty good songs, and whether or not you like to admit it, he actually can rock out. So I'm not a huge Sammy Hagar fan, but they actually made some goddamn good songs with him, so stop complaining.
Well, and as long as it's not the Neil Sharon, or Neil Sean and Neil Sharon, what was his name?
The guy from
Extreme.
Extreme, yeah. I didn't listen to any of that, so I can't comment.
That's the thing, is, like, neither one of us can remember his name.
I can remember the one song by Extreme more than words, but I don't remember any songs that he did with Van Halen. Yeah.
No, but I appreciate you saying that, because that's kind of been like an ongoing, not so much a battle. We don't really attempt to fight people on it. It's just more like, like, if you don't like this new version of Tsunami Bomb, and, like, you're, like, really married to the old version, that's fine. Enjoy. Like, we're just happy you're listening at all,
Yeah.
And but we invite you to listen and to enjoy it, because we think it's good, and, like, we're gonna keep doing it. So
well, people still only listen to the shit that they listened to in high school, so it's hard to get them to do anything else.
We learned very quickly that there's no reason to try to convince people otherwise. It's all good as far as we're concerned. We're just happy people listen at all, to any of it. But yes, and so we've got we're trying to do a full length. We have a couple of other things that we're trying to do as well. So, but I don't want to spill too many beans on that, because it's some pretty cool stuff. And then, I mean, I don't have a lot of information about it, but I did mention before, like, I do have a side project that I'm kind of involved with. It involves some people that I've been playing music with since high school, and we kind of have, like, a new project we're doing. It's probably not going to be very much of, like, an active band, but it'll probably be more of a studio thing. But I've got some stuff that we've got down the pike. We actually did contribute a track to the Operation Ivy tribute. We covered Plea for Peace, and I think we did a pretty cool job with it. So
nice.
It's actually my first time taking the lead vocal. So that's kind of interesting. Yeah.
All right. Nice.
Yeah.
And you're putting it out on your own record label. So see, you are an egomaniac.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, I did reissue the Snipers record on vinyl too. So,
Gotcha.
and actually, I've got something coming down the pike that's along the same lines, but I don't want to spill those beans either. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny because I always just joke because like a lot of the people that I have, specifically the people I have on this podcast, are probably some of the most humble people that you'll ever talk to. Otherwise, they probably even wouldn't be on the fucking podcast to begin with. But I like
Sure.
to joke around. Obviously, when I say that Andy's an egomaniac, he's definitely not an egomaniac. But everybody who's in a band who performs in front of people has a bit of an ego that they just kind of hide behind, because they have to. Otherwise, why the fuck would you get up in front of people and play your own music? It's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think there's some truth to that. Like even the most like introverted musicians, I think, have like a touch of that ego that
Yeah.
kind of gets like I don't know, like stroke the ego a little bit,
Sure.
But I
Feels
don't know.
good
I
to
don't
be
think there's
liked.
anything wrong with it, as long as you're not a dick.
Yeah,
Just don't be
exactly.
an asshole. Yeah.
Exactly. Very cool. So we'll put obviously some links to Tsunami Bomb stuff, Sell the Heart Records, obviously links in the show notes below this episode. One last question before we sign off. And I've asked you about music already a bunch, but I'm going to ask you for what one piece, one album, one band, one song, what one piece of new music would you recommend people check out?
That band High Viz, who
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard of them, but they're from England. They're great. That album they put out last year is excellent. It was one of my top records of last year. It was fantastic.
I'm pretty sure I listened to the record. I don't think I got to do a review because I think I was just behind at the time, but I'm gonna have to go check it out again because it's been a while.
Yeah, that record's excellent. But there's a whole lot that I could name if you give me some time, but I don't want to keep you too long.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. So lots of recommendations, lots of good stuff. Obviously, you got to check out Naysayers and learn more about Sell the Heart Records because there's going to be a lot of stuff coming. And if you don't know any of the bands that Andy's mentioned, you can definitely go check all those links out below this episode in the show notes and get to know these bands because they are really good. And if you want to get part of that record club and get all these freaking vinyls that he's putting out this year for one great price, I would highly recommend that.
Asian Man launched their own, and it like blew away. Like it sold out super fast. So
yeah, it's crazy what Mike's been able to do with Asian Man Records. It's
dude,
just,
Mike
been around forever.
Mike Park is hands down the inspiration for doing the label. Like Asian Man Records, 1,000,000% is the reason why Sell the Heart Records exists.
Yeah,
like no question about it. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
very cool. So go check out all the links below. Check out the music, get some vinyls, get some albums, go listen to the bands. And obviously, if you want to check out more stuff from us, make sure obviously to remember that the Powered by Rock podcast is powered by our listeners. So share this episode with friends and post about it on social media and subscribe to the podcast as well. Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to, podcasts. And we can actually check us out on YouTube as well, because if you're only listening to this, you can go see full videos on YouTube and Spotify because we do have the ability to watch these things now. So you can see all this cool stuff that's behind us right now. Not that there's anything there, but and if you like reading, want to check out some of our awesome content, our shop, our merch and gear, you can go to poweredbyrock.com to see what's good there. That's it. That's our show for today, guys. And I'll see you soon for the next episode. Until then, rock on.
What was supposed to be